good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Red Hot Talk once again. And you can see that Rod is not here at this moment in time because he's having some camera issues. So hopefully he's going to join us in the moment. So let's hope that he can resolve the problem that he has at the moment. So how are you all? I hope you all guys are enjoying your day wherever you are. I hope the weather is good. Today we have a beautiful sunny day. Although there were some little drizzles this morning in London, but overall it's great. I've already done 2 photo shoots this morning. It went very well. So hopefully my clients will like those photos. Today we are going to have some fun conversation, shall we? I would like to have your input and contribution to today's video. How you feel about the camera market in general, and I'm not just talking about camera makers, but also lens manufacturer as well. So more specifically, we are looking at some of the third-party manufacturers, the likes of Zeiss, Voigtlander, even from China, we have Laowa, Viltrox, TT Artisan, 7 Artisan, you name it. We're not going to go for every single brand, but we're going to talk about some that probably more catching to my eyes, simply because of what's happening around in 2025, for instance, because this has given us some indications of what is going to happen in the very near future. So that is what the whole conversation is about today. When it comes to the overall camera market, we all know that it's almost stagnant for the past few years. Many of you have read the news from DP reviews, and even for hearing from us for the last year or two, would know that we're constantly having these discussions and about how can we grow the camera market, how can we attract new customer to the market, buying cameras, not just relying on existing customers. So this is almost, I would say, the holy grail for all company at this moment in time, because we all just trying to fight for the same people within the same industry for the past 2 to 3 decades. There are just simply not enough new photographers coming in and buying proper cameras, and that is a struggle. How much more can you milk from the current user base? And that is really, really tricky, right? Because I don't know about you. Okay, I may be the exception because I like to buy cameras. I like to buy quirky and funky cameras, and because my job is being a photographer, means that I earn money from photography. So sometimes I can get away with buying 1 or 2 extra cameras if I want. But normally, I would say from a consumer point of view, when you buy a nice camera, you are very unlikely to buy another camera or upgrade your camera, every year, right? You won't. And most people would probably upgrade the camera every 2 to 3 years, the earliest. So there isn't much you can do within this sort of buying pattern from existing user base. There's just simply not enough people to keep this market afloat. So how are we going to do that? We had a little bit of discussion with Rod, probably about 3-4 chats before. So you can probably good to revisit some of those conversations. But overall, I would just think that they're all trying their best. They're all trying to be a little bit different, a little bit more innovative when it comes to feature sets. They're trying to entice people, this new camera is really good, this is great, and you can do this, you can do that. Most likely that you see in the last 3 to 4 years is that Rod is right here. Let's bring him in.
Possibly.
He's here.
Oh, and that, yeah, so my I've had to use a completely different computer. So
oh dear.
it's a bizarre issue. My phone got some mud on it. So because phones don't mind being rinsed, I rinsed it. Unfortunately, when I've just tried to plug it in to use it's my camera, it said, "Oh, your lightning port's wet. Can't charge because it'll blow up." But I think that stopped the continuity camera working. So I'm on my 2013 MacBook.
Well, it works fine.
I don't think the camera's very good, but at least it gets around that problem. So I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. Bad luck.
You're here. Well, I haven't really moved on too much. We just basically trying to give an introduction about today's conversation. We talked a little bit about what we wanted to discuss over the next few weeks. But overall, I think today is quite a good starter then to start on this whole line of conversations that we want to have in the near future. So today's topic is about the predictions of 2026 and beyond. We're looking at more generally the camera market. How do we see it happening based on what's happening in the last year, or in particular 2025? But not only just camera makers, but also lens makers as well, because there's quite a big shift. That's my experience anyway, so I'm going to share about that. And also I would like to hear from your point of view, and also from the audience point of view, what sort of thing they think, whether you agree or disagree, whether you have other thoughts or things that we may have missed, for instance, because look, I don't keep track of every single piece of news in the whole world, and also not every single brand. So you may know something that we don't. So it'll be quite good to have your input in this discussion as well. So, I was just talking about, the general market that we discussed before is simply that the number of users hasn't really grown, and all the camera manufacturers are basically fighting this user base. So, they're trying to. It's kind of bloodbath in a way, they're trying to fight with the same users. And
Dramatic.
I talk about, and I'm also basically saying that, the buying patterns are what is slowing the whole thing down. People don't buy new cameras every year, which is impossible. So a consumer buy a nice camera, they're unlikely to upgrade their camera, every year. They will probably buy a new camera or upgrade every 2, 3, maybe even 5 years if you're lucky. They're more likely maybe to get buy new lenses instead of new cameras. But overall, that's what the camera manufacturers are struggling. Is there any way that we can capture the imagination from these new users? Can they do anything new to basically attract new photographer coming in who hasn't bought a new like a proper camera before, and coming and buy their first camera? And I think that is what every single camera manufacturer are trying to do. We talked a little bit about that. They're trying to go for the content creators market, creating hybrid cameras, and then they're trying to do all sorts. Fujifilm is obviously trying even more extreme. They brought out the X-Half, which is a very expensive JPEG only point-and-shoot camera with the quirks, but with the charm of an old school rangefinder camera in terms of look and aesthetic. And so they are trying. So what's your view, Rod? You see about what in 2025 you see like Fujifilm is doing something, and you can see other camera manufacturers are doing something else. What's your general feel about the whole thing at the moment?
I don't know. So I'm just going to plug something else in. It's funny how your whole life is thrown into turmoil from one stupid little thing. So I think actually, in a funny kind of way, the past is coming back to haunt us, because the cameras we used to use in the past, and the techniques we used in the past, and the things we liked in the past, they haven't gone away. We thought they had, but they've actually come back. So it turns out we actually like old-fashioned cameras. We actually like quite primitive controls. We like the look of old imperfect pictures. So I think in a funny kind of way, the camera makers have been pushing on, trying to bring us the future.
Yep.
But actually, we've figured out we kind of like the past. I don't know. Maybe that sounds like a strange thing to say, but I think it encompasses a whole lot of trends at the moment.
No, I think you're right. Just to give you a few examples, actually, that spring to my mind straight away when you say that. While we are chasing for more megapixels, sharper lenses to bring us more crispy pictures, now you see a lot of photographers and content creators are buying mist filters to soften the images, to make it a little bit more organic, to make it a little bit more, kind of old school looking kind of imagery. You know what I mean? Without getting into the vintage lenses. So I think you're quite right in that sense. You know, people are kind of falling backwards. You know, yeah, I might have 60 megapixel, 100 megapixel, but I want to put a filters in it because it just doesn't look right. It looks a little bit too sharp. I just want a little bit of old school feel of it in terms of the image aesthetic. I want it to be a little bit softer. Yeah, I just want to have a little bit of halo going. So they're trying to do all sorts of stuff. Even when it comes to editing, they do employ some digital filters to make them look a little bit old school. Well, we talk about film presets, right? You know, this is kind of also kind of like a throwback as well. You know, like I just want a little bit of kind of the old stuff back into my digital life.
I think it's going to be two words beginning with E. So I think the past few years, photographers thought and camera makers were convinced that what we want is exactness, but what we want is evocation. We want to evoke a feeling, and you don't do that with megapixels and sharpness. You do it with crazy stuff like cross-processing or light leaks or glow effects or grain. Yeah. So all these years we thought we wanted things to be clinically precise and sharp. But actually, perhaps what we really want is to capture a feeling of a thing or a feeling of a place or a feeling of an event.
Yes, and also a lot of the times, that's how I make my images anyway. I mean, I often don't like my images to look overly sharp. There are a lot of reasons why I shoot with vintage lenses, even with high megapixel cameras. But like I said already, you know, my highest megapixel camera is actually 26. I don't have anything over that, so I don't particularly enjoy doing these ultra high resolution stuff. I just always think they not only just about the resolution to the print size, but also when it comes to 25, 26 megapixels sensors, it gives me a lot of room to actually make the images more organic to look at. Because a lot of the time when you have a large file, really sharp, and you've got a really sharp lens to go together, overall, I just don't think that it looks right in my eyes. It's just way too sharp, way too detailed. But that's only me. You know, I'm pretty sure that some may disagree. But overall, I just feel like that's why a lot of the new type photographers now, even the youngsters in 20s and 30s, they have these 40, 50 megapixel Sony cameras and Canon cameras. They are buying mist filters and this filter and that filter just to soften the image up to get that look and feel again, even they are shooting at much higher resolution counts. But in my eyes, I often found that, lower resolution actually give you that advantage straight away. It doesn't look overly processed, even though they may be sharp. But when you compare the files side by side, you can definitely tell the difference. One is definitely more detailed. Obviously, then again, depending on the screen that you're looking at or the medium that you're looking at, that also plays a part as well. But overall, I always think that the lower megapixel can actually, it's a little bit sweeter in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think it's we've had this conversation lots of times about megapixels, haven't we? That I've had cameras of all sorts of different resolutions, but once you get beyond 20 or 25 megapixels, to see the difference, you have to zoom in.
Yep.
And zooming in isn't quite normal because it's not what people do. If you share a photo, people don't have the opportunity to zoom in or the inclination. They don't particularly want them to. You want them to appreciate the image in its entirety. And if the image looks good at the largest size they're ever going to show it, then that's fine. I think it's quite normal and quite natural, and it's for people to be absorbed by sharpness and resolution. This has been around for ages and ages and ages. Even, back in the days of film, people were using technical film designed really for a laboratory for shooting landscapes because it gave more detail. I mean, the spectrum of this, but the film was probably not well suited to landscapes. So pictorially, it probably didn't work so well, but it was sharper. So I don't think this is going to go away. But it is a particular interest I think all photographers have. But we have to be more practical, I think. And I do believe sometimes that this obsession with sharpness distracts us from taking photographs that have a kind of emotional meaning or emotional depth.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that many of you probably would agree, if you're given a choice, would you want to capture the right moment or a sharp image?
The curious thing is, for a lot of people, those are interchangeable.
Yeah,
they'll say, I don't care, it's sharp. That's all I care about. So yeah, I think it depends on your own preferences, your own ambitions, what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think technical quality can often, for some people, can be a substitute.
Yeah.
For kind of creative involvement.
Yeah. But on this note about having a little bit of throwback, going back into what we used to like, for instance. So first thing we want to talk about, obviously, how camera makers are trying to get people to buy cameras. We're not even talking about getting new photographer buying new cameras for the very first time, but existing photographer buying cameras. One of the things that they immediately comes into mind about going old school is vintage design for the cameras. We've seen the success coming from Fujifilm. We've seen the success coming from Nikon with their ZFC and ZF. Olympus cameras always selling quite well because of the vintage look. Do you think this trend is going to continue from this point on for the foreseeable future?
I think it might wear out, if I'm honest, like most trends. As soon as everyone's doing it, nobody wants it. That's the general rule of fashion, I think. But we mentioned briefly the X1/2, and I know this is a very controversial camera.
Yeah.
But to me, this is Fujifilm saying, look, it's all about the moment. It's not about resolution. It's not about shooting raw. It's almost like Fujifilm saying, look, stop it. Go and enjoy photographs.
It's an experience. Let's put it that way. I think the X1/2 is an experience. Which is right here. I got one right here, and so it is a cute little thing. And I have to say that it's one of the slowest camera I've used in the last 10 years. So the AF is not particularly fast, so you can't shoot anything's moving because it's really that slow. But given that this is the 1-inch sensor, so the depth of field is very forgiving, even if shooting it wide open. So it's not as bad as you may think. But if you are into street photography, you know the hyper-focusing technique. It does allow you to do that. You have a digital gauge at the back, so you can see what sort of distance covering when you stop down. So you can literally just stop the lens down to f8. And then you look at it, from 2 meters to infinities are basically in focus. So then you basically just snap away. It's the only thing that slows you down is how quickly it will refresh to the next frame. Because this thing, apart from the autofocus being slow, the digital file advancement is also quite slow as well. So from one frame to another, it takes about a second or two. So you can't do successive shots like you normally do with modern digital cameras. So you have to just click. You have to wait a couple of seconds before you can click another one again. So, but I guess in some way, this is what we used to do, right, with film cameras.
I don't think anyone expects a street photographer to use the X1/2. The way I see it is, it's like it's the camera you'll take on those endless summers of your youth. It's all about nostalgia and the moment. And unrepeatable friendships and places and things like that. It's very much an emotional sort of approach. And I think it's quite a clever one. And I think it taps into something that people do actually want. Some people who've been embedded in photography for a long time will think it's nonsense. Yeah. And they want the technical quality and the control and everything else. Yep. But for a lot of people, photographs are very special things. They're memories of things that won't happen again, and people that have long gone and time sort of passed. It's an emotional thing, and I think that's what Fujifilm is going for with the X1/2. So the problem for the X1/2 is it's always going to be compared to other cameras, which it's always going to come up short. But it's not really designed to compete with other cameras.
I think you're right, but I think Fujifilm in some way has shot their foot, by themselves.
Shot themselves in the foot, yeah.
It's the pricing. If the X1/2 It's about £500. It's still an expensive camera for a JPEG only point and shoot camera, but with the quirks that it has, I think 500, maybe stretch it to 600 is reasonable. But for $799, it is quite a big pill to swallow.
It is. But maybe this is Fujifilm combining its dreamy sentiment with hard-nosed profit. Maybe it thinks the kind of people who might go for that kind of image also have lots of money. But it's a sort of camera lomography should have made and sold for half the price.
Well, funny you mentioned for lomography, because we are talking about camera industry in general. So obviously in 2025, I mean, I see a lot of talks surrounding some of the releases that we've seen so far. Most of them are surrounding on camera design rather than technical advancements or superiority compared to previous generations of cameras. For instance, the Fujifilm's X-Half, it got caused quite a buzz, and this year, good or bad, it's got a lot of people talking about it. And then the OM system OM3 got a lot of people talking. The OM5 Mark II, again, like I said, you like it or not, a lot of people are talking about it because of the look and the design of the camera itself. So I think this trend will probably continue for a couple of years at least, minimum, because this nostalgia, old school throwback trend is continuing, not just in the camera industry, but it happens in all sorts of industry now. It's kind of like all of a sudden we see a lot of vintage throwback, from fashions to even cars. A lot of the cars are now kind of like going backward, like, oh, let's get some inspiration from some of the 1960, 1970 cars, and let's reinterpret it into more modern iterations, right? They do that as well. Watches, they do the same thing. Let's throw back. Let's go and look at some of these 1960, 1970 watches. Let's remake them in 2025.
It's a strange thing. The whole digital revolution has brought the past back into the present. You would have thought it had the opposite effect, wouldn't you? But it happens with music. So 20 years ago, tracks on vinyl albums were lost forever, basically, because there are very few left and people didn't have to get to play them. But digital music and streaming services have brought all this music back into the modern world. And I think what we're starting to feel is that, we actually like stuff recorded 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years, 20, and we lump it all in together and we enjoy it for its own sake in a modern context. And in a strange way, I think that's happening in photography too. These old styles, they used to belong to history, but now they're back and they're alongside modern styles. So I do think in some ways the past has come back, not to haunt us, but it's come back to compete for our attention.
I always say that I'm quite happy for that. At least I look a bit more trendy than I should.
Well, a specific thing. Do you think with the OM3, that OM system made a camera that did too much?
When it comes to features?
Yes, because it has very powerful video features.
Yes.
Alongside its stills features, it's a retro camera that you could argue should have been aimed specifically at fans of retro analog style photography. In some ways, do you think all these other capabilities are a distraction and kind of dilute the message?
It is, but it isn't at the same time. I think the balance is very hard to strike, simply because of what's happening around OM system. I'm not, so it's the likes of Fujifilm, for instance. If you're thinking about a camera that has a certain aesthetic, old school aesthetic, old school charm, SLR looking, have the same build quality. In these day and age, we all expected, if you have a nice camera, claim to be more premium, you have to have at least a metal build, have to have at least weather sealing and everything. When you bundle it all up together, when it comes to the product line or product categories, you have to looking at something slightly more premium. You have to look at the, like in Fujifilm's line would be more like in line with the XT series. It's not going to be the XS series, for instance. So when you're looking at that, so the pricing of those cameras are 15 to 1800, 1900 pound in the UK, around about the same in dollars. So they have to look at that kind of price bracket. When you look at those price bracket, and then you look at what they offer technologically, what sort of features that they have, whether you like it or not, they have to throw in something to make them almost comparable. So yeah. I think they do it just to satisfy box ticking exercises.
So this is the impossible position that camera makers are in, because they can't go back from the current level of technology. If OM System had not made the OM3 video capable, a few people would have liked it for that reason, but a lot of people would have ripped it to shreds, saying, this is a camera made in 2025 and it doesn't even shoot video. So in a way, camera makers have created a situation where every camera has to do everything, which makes it very much harder to produce a camera with any kind of distinct character or purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it is true.
This is perhaps what we want.
I want a purist camera. If I have been given a choice to have a camera, I will have a stripped down camera. Just allow me to do my thing. I don't need AR subject tracking recognitions. I don't need that. I just need a capable camera, rugged. Obviously icing on the cake will be good looking, but that's not necessarily the case for me to work. But I need a capable camera, have good sensor, have a lot of the direct controls that I need as a photographer, so I can adjust things very quickly on the fly without having to dial into sub menus and things like that. That's what I want. I don't need anything else. That's me, and that's why you can still see a lot of professional on the street still using DSLRs, because they are more traditional. They're more even though they're digital, but they're definitely more old school. They don't have a lot of the features that we have today, all these automations. They just a simple AF cameras, have only about 5 points autofocus point, and then it's very simple, very basic, but that's what they need. That's what we need.
Clarity of purpose is how I would put it. And I think the issue facing camera makers is every camera now has to be a hybrid camera, which means you have two sets of controls, and only a certain amount of real estate on a camera body for physical controls. Inevitably, the more a camera does, the more you're going to have to drill down through the interface to reach these controls. So I think the days when I think Fujifilm's done very well to get external exposure controls on the camera. Yeah. Nobody else seems interested in doing that. And I think in general, what we find frustrating about modern cameras is it's probably not that they do a load of things we don't need them to, but the fact that they do all these things makes it a little bit more difficult to access the controls that we do need.
Yeah. It is, man. It's also very frustrating from the camera makers themselves. And imagine the user interface engineer, designing this menu system. Suddenly, the R&D department. Oh, well, we thought about brand new features here. Let's talk about it. And then all these features can link to other little sub features that the camera offers. And when it comes to the UI design, and this engineer look at it. So where should I put these features in the menu? So I link it to this or that, or should I put both places, or should we have a dedicated buttons on the cameras? It's frustrating. And when it comes to the users, it's equally frustrating. When there's a brand new feature came along, right? Okay, how I'm going to access this?
It's a difficulty, isn't it? So the electronics experts say, well, look, we figured out we can add. Yeah. We can add some more subject tracking models for we've got one for grasshoppers and water boatmen and whatever else. You need to get them in the menus. So the interface designer is going to say, how do I do that? And they'll say, you're the interface designer. It's your job. I can't do your job. You do it. And then the interface designer might say to the product design team,
let's add another page.
can I have a button? Can I have a button on the camera? And I'll say, no. Fill in a form. We'll get back to you in 4 years, maybe then. But I think this has led to another thing which maybe a lot of people find it useful. I find it very tiresome. You now have cameras which are designed solely around function buttons, which you're expected to program. So if I'm using, say, my Sony A7 II, if I want to do anything directly with a button, I have to figure out which button I want to use and then program it to do that. If I'm using an old school DSLR like my Nikon D610, every button has a job. I've got an ISO button, I've got a white balance button, I've got a metering mode button. I don't have any choice about how the camera operates, but it's just a very clear set of controls. I have to learn where they are, but they only do one thing. But that is much easier than having a camera where you program function buttons and you just have to hope to God you remember what you set them up to do next day or the day after.
Yeah, well, Chuck actually says Sony does it well with the modal for photo and video. Yes, I think for the past few years, you start to see manufacturers doing that, having a dedicated mode to separate the functions and the sets of the functions or buttons between photos and videos. But you see the ways where we're coming up now is that they're adding more layers, more switches, more things, and makes the camera... just getting more and more complicated than it needs to be. We talked about this already. That's why we always said the hybrid camera doesn't really make sense. You either have a stills cameras, you just sort of have all the physical control that a photographer wants, and have a video camera just does video. In the old days, I didn't mind carrying a camcorder, just does video things, and a camera just to do the still things. I don't want to mix them up. If I want to shoot video, I'll take up my camcorder and just press record and just record things in front of me. And that's it. And then when I want to take photos, just use my camera just to do the still things that I want to do. There's no mix up anywhere. The buttons are clear because there's two sets of cameras there. I don't have to worry about mixing them up. Yeah.
I mean, ideally, if you are going to use a hybrid camera that does both, you'd want to switch on the mode dial. You'll want all the menus to remember where they were last left for that mode. But all the menus, two completely separate sets of menu systems. Even better if they're in a different color. So you can instantly remind yourself, oh, wait a minute, we're shooting video, aren't I? Not stills. But I think a lot of camera makers are starting to do that anyway. But I also think that it's not necessarily that camera makers are trying to sell their cameras to people who shoot both stills and videos. I think they're perhaps trying to sell the cameras twice over to two audiences. Maybe sell twice as many cameras.
well, that is the problem that we started this conversation. The camera makers are trying to get us existing users to buy cameras, and that's what they're trying to do by giving us more features, more functionalities, more things, more everything to entice us to get it. But that may not work. That can only work so far, and how much better can you get a camera in 2025, compared to the one that released last year, or even 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, apart from maybe, a stop better in ISO performance, but we only talk about extremely high ISO performance, not between base ISO to, let's say, 6400 or even 12,800. This is set and done. You can't improve much on it. Like all the camera you buy 6, 7 years ago would perform just as good as 2025. You're only looking at those extreme scenarios. Look at these extremely high ISO settings where you will see the improvement. And how much faster can you shoot? It's really shooting at like 15, 20, 30 frames per second. Okay, the new camera can do 60. But do you really use that 60 compared to 30? That's already really fast to most people. So camera manufacturers are really trying hard to get us buying new cameras. And I don't see myself, apart from design, I would buy something that in 2025 that is based purely on specifications or numbers. Because to me, I don't use 95% of the stuff that they advertise these days. And I only want to shoot photos. So as long as I can change my exposure triangle, I'm very happy.
That's the difficulty, isn't it? All the development now is going into scenarios which are increasingly rare. So we're getting high ISO performance that we will almost never use because the conditions have to be so extreme for it to be necessary. Or high-speed continuous shooting. Back in the day, a pro would have said 10 frames a second was ridiculous. Who needs 10 frames a second? But now we can do 60. We thought, well, better have 60 then, haven't we? It's become important just because it's become possible. But it's a very, very... There aren't many situations where you need to shoot at 60 frames a second.
Yes.
Unless you're just not very good at that particular genre, and you just want to hedge your bets. But
absolutely. But that really is what brings us to today's main topic, the predictions of future. Because what we talk about, what we spend the last half an hour talking about, all this stuff is laying the foundation of what we think the future may be. Because we are looking at a lot of stuff that us existing photographer wants and needs, or things that we're looking at from the traditional camera makers. So obviously we all know that especially in digital age, there's always someone new around the corner who is about to break the mold, trying to do something different, trying to get into a market that we existing users may not necessarily see. And one particular company I really talked to Rod about is that I think from China is looking increasingly interesting in my eyes. Because it's capturing a lot of imaginations from a lot of the new generations of whether it's going to be still photographers or creators who actually use cameras, and that is DJI. Okay, let's just start. I'm not a DJI fan. I'm not the ambassador. I mean, all the products that I've got so far I bought with my own money, so I don't have any affiliation with them. But I'm interested and curious about how they have suddenly coming from a drone manufacturers, to now be one of the biggest tech company in China, and they are having their foot in almost every categories they can imagine right now, in terms of creative space, from filmmaking to cameras, from drones, so everything now, and also they are spending a lot of effort and time and resources to tie the system together, have built an ecosystem that works with their products one way or the other. So it's a very tight-knitted ecosystem that if you start to buy one product, you buy a new product that released 2 years later, they will work together. No matter how you look at it, I think it's a convenience factor that a lot of people are looking for. For instance, if I'm a Olympus users, like remember the old days, we also have Olympus speed lights, and the remote trigger system, all this stuff that we rarely talk about these days. These are integrated system and ecosystem that all manufacturers used to do, right? Their own speed light system. So like, it ties into it, because you buy a camera, you ought to buy a flash, you ought to buy this and you ought to buy that. We don't really talk about this stuff anymore because people don't really use these sort of accessories anymore. So this mentality existed before, but it's just that we almost in the last 5 to maybe even 10 years, we forgot all about it. But now DJI is starting from scratch, looking into the market and starting to look at the young people. What do they do, these young people? Remember, we talk about attracting new blood into the industry, trying to get people to buy cameras, So a lot of the traditional manufacturers like Canon, Nikon, even OM Systems and Ricoh's, Pentax, we are looking from an old school point of view. We were looking from within, not from the outside. Well, DJI is looking from the outside because they are trying to build something. They're trying to build something new all the time, trying to satisfy what the new people actually need. Just to give you a brief example, the Pocket 3, we talked about this already. The Pocket 3 single-handedly wiped out the whole vlogging market and dominating by itself. Just one device. It wiped out all the Sony ZV-1 or ZV-E1, whatever, those vlogging cameras. And Panasonic has their vlogging cameras. All the manufacturers try these vlogging things, but none of them have anywhere near as successful as DJI. ever since they launched the Pocket 3, it literally wiped the floor. It just cleans up everything. Everyone bought the Pocket 3, then they bought the mic. It has to have something to go with it. And then that mic also wiped the Rode system that traditional people have to buy and stuck on top of the camera. So you see when something new coming out like this, it's hard to ignore the existence, and all of a sudden you think that, okay, they may be the kind of manufacturers or designer that we need to see to bring new people into to the market to buy something. So it may be a good thing for the rest of us, because I'm not just talking about the Pocket 3 thing, but I'm talking in general, because now new people are coming in. Once they buy the Pocket 3, for instance, at some point they will probably think, okay, now I'm in this market now. I'm starting to become a professional creator. I wanted to do something. I may want to take better photos. I may want a better camera, right? So then we'll start looking at cameras. So it may be a good gateway and a good kind of like a push for new people who may not necessarily would consider buying a camera to buy a camera. So maybe a good thing. But of course, that until the DJI decide to make a camera.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What if DJI made a camera?
Well, they already bought Hasselblad, right?
They already do. Yeah, they already make a camera. Yeah, there's a bit of a gap between the two concepts, but it's almost as if DJI is doing a better job of enhancing the quality from a cheap device than camera makers are at making expensive devices portable and effective, which are not really when you compare them to the Pocket 3. That I think the trouble is that I don't think the Pocket 3 is going to encourage anyone to buy a camera, because they'll be horrified at having and not having a gimbal and having something weighs a kilo, and especially if they see a gimbal, the kind of gimbal you need to put a hybrid camera on, they'd be horrified. Except that if you have a certain influencer style, it would be good to be seen going around with a giant camera gimbal and doing all the pro filming effects and looking like a proper filmmaker. But they're not fun to use. No. And I can't see a Pocket 3 or any camera like that, or an Osmo Action or an Insta360 even. They will not get people into stills photography.
No,
so that's when a camera starts coming into its own. So do you think that by marketing cameras as vlogging tools, camera makers are muddying the water? They should be selling them as cameras for photography, or is it too late and nobody cares?
But I think so. But it's quite a grey area at the moment, because of how the influencers online are playing their part of on promoting certain camera types and certain cameras features. It's quite hard, because a lot of people, especially young people, looking at these big YouTubers and big influencers, they get inspired by what they said, they get inspired by what they use. So they think that, okay, to become a successful vloggers, I got to have this, I got to have that. But in reality, once you start buying this stuff, you soon realize it's a bit of a fact, right? There's so much hassle. I have to buy a camera, I have to buy lenses, I have to buy lights, I have to buy mics, I have to buy gimbal, I have to buy brackets. The list goes on. You start going more and more and more. And I've been there myself, right? So ultimately, I just pick up my Pocket 3 and flip the screen. Okay, there you go. I'm up and running in 2 seconds.
I think perhaps the thing is, if your channel is about something other than a camera, a Pocket 3 will be fine and probably the best solution. If your channel is about being a photographer and a filmmaker, it's probably not the camera you want to be seen with.
Yeah.
So if your channel is about your life as a professional vlogger, you probably do have to have a Sony ZV-1 or what else can we think of? The fancy hybrid vlogging camera goes with that image. But if all you're doing is recording content about something else, nobody's going to see the camera.
Yeah.
I think the Pocket 3 is going to be much more effective. But it is complicated because very often what you're filming with is part of your image, isn't it? That's the thing.
It is. Well, that's debatable. You know, that really depends on what you do. I think that for a lot of the content creators, for instance, who, let's say, make contents on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, they are more or less a talking head. They're more about filming themselves. So not necessarily you actually see what they use to film themselves. So in that case, camera does not matter, you know. And also in most cases, I would say that it's not about the look and feel of the video itself. It's almost all about the character of the persons in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So you know, it's all about entertainment. It's all about information. So it's nothing about cinematic. You know, those are, you talk about cinematography, you talk about filmmaking. Those are very different genre altogether. So in that case, you can film with your iPhone, right? You know, you can film with a smartphone. There's no problem, you know, for YouTube content creations. You don't need expensive gear to do that. As long as you got good content, you're funny, or you're entertaining, or you got really a wealth of information to share, and people are buying it. There's nothing to stop you from creating very profitable contents on YouTube. And you don't necessarily need to spend tens of thousands of pounds to buy really nice cameras and nice lenses to do the big YouTuber do. You know, you don't really need that. I still see big YouTuber using iPhones still, you know, they haven't changed.
I think if you use the camera with the same amount of skill and filmmaking skill, I mean, by that I mean how you plan a shot, how you frame it, how you think through what's going to happen. If you use the same skills on all these cameras, it's very difficult to tell what was shot on an iPhone from a Pocket 3, or whether it's shot on a Sony A7 III with an f1.4, A7 IIIS with an f1.4 lens. The only way to make it obvious it's shot with a fancy camera is shallow depth of field.
Yes.
So it's almost as if shallow depth of field has become a proof that you've got a proper camera. Yeah. But in terms of narrative quality or technical quality or just filmmaking styles and engagement, it's very difficult to tell what things are filmed on, because if the filmmaker has got some skill, all cameras tend to look the same, or very similar.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's definitely the case at the moment. But just before we continue, Thomas, just get a latest comment here. If I missed the answer already, apologies. I'm not complaining, but why is live stream today, Thursday, not Wednesday?
Yeah, why is that, Jimmy?
I have to apologize. It was me because I was very busy yesterday. I was shooting 3 sessions yesterday, so by the time I got back, it's almost the live streaming time, so I had no time to prepare or to do anything, so I had to move it until today. Even today, I was speaking to Rob earlier this morning, so I don't know if I can make it today because I'm still out shooting this morning. So yeah. This is kind of like a tough time for me to try to manage my time. That's why you don't see many videos coming out from me at the moment, just because I simply don't have enough free time to continue to make videos. But don't worry, you know, my peak season is almost towards the end now. But I think in about 3 to 4 weeks, I think should kind of calm down a little bit. I should go back to normal, and you'll see a lot more videos coming out. That's for sure. But also, you know, just to give a little bit of insight, you know, there's some exciting stuff coming out, but I'm not going to say too much for now. So just stay tuned. That's all I can say. Nothing. But it's interesting, right? You know, I think overall, it's a gap that we need to plug. You know, when it comes to trying to get the camera market or the industry going again. We really cannot keep looking at existing user base. We need new people, and a company like DJI, I'm not saying specific them, but other companies who are having a more kind of think outside of the box mentality, keep thinking new things and breaking the mold, will be those that who potentially shape our future. Because the thing is, you know, like we talked about this, right? You know, Sony, Nikon, even Sony, I'm talking about Sony, Nikon, Canon, all the other people, I mean, because they they have been in the industry for a very, very long time, and they are, at the moment they are talking about, evolutions, not revolutions. Everything that we see now is just improvement of the last generation of the product. It's no breakthrough. There's no something like that's groundbreaking coming out. We are seeing improved cameras. They are improved. Not saying they are not, but they are still cameras. The form factor is more or less the same. The design is more or less the same. It's just not seeing that kind of thing that, oh, that is new. I would like to get one. I would like to try it because it's new, right? We don't get that feeling anymore. We don't have that kind of urge to really go and get something. And the likes of, like, let's say DJI or Insta360, the 360 camera, that looks cool. That's new, although it's been around for a few years now. But that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about now. Something new, something that exciting. How can we capture sphere, photos? How can we capture things like that? It's interesting, right? It's interesting.
It's unfortunate that all the innovative companies you're describing are not interested in photography. They're interested in video. I think the photography industry, I think a lot of the companies in it are doing a thing I've seen across the board. It's where companies have convinced themselves their market is in decline. So instead of trying to reverse that decline, they try to manage it by maximizing their profit, minimizing their outlays, and keeping it going as long as they can. It's a very negative frame of mind, but I think that might be the frame of mind that they're in. It's what happened to print publishing. And most of the magazines we used to like to buy on a Saturday morning and read over the weekend, they're gone, all the specialist titles, because the publishers convinced themselves that the market was in decline.
Yeah.
And therefore they monetize it in such a way that they make the most of it while it lasts.
Yeah.
So cover prices went up, circulation went down, the quality of the content went down because you're paying your contributors less. And I think we see some of the same things in the photography industry, where manufacturers don't bother designing new cameras because they think, well, why throw money at that when we can just try to extract a little bit more money from where we are and just manage this slow decline. So I think that may be why certain companies haven't designed a new camera for like 10 years.
Like Rickle.
Because, and bigger companies than that. Because I think they feel, well, let's not spend the money. Let's just try and earn as much money as we can without spending any.
But
I mean, that's a very negative way to put it.
Yeah.
But I think that may be it.
It's not healthy, right? You think about it.
No.
It's almost like you already recognize your death. You're just slowing it down.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's kind of like that.
But you kind of create the situation by not innovating and by gradually pushing prices higher and by introducing features that service a smaller and smaller section of the market.
Yeah.
You are kind of putting people off spending any money on a new camera. You're not making a product that might turn it around. So we've had a conversation about what we'd like to see in new cameras. We probably shouldn't do that again. But whatever we think we want from cameras in the future, I don't think we'll get that because that would require a bit of innovation and, frankly, a bit of nerve on the part of the makers. And I don't think the will is there, sadly.
No.
I think the accountants are in charge.
Yeah.
And they figure, well, look, it's in decline. We need to make as much money as possible for as long as possible until the whole thing grinds to a halt.
Or it basically until someone takes over the whole thing, and
or somebody like Nikon, for example, starts remanufacturing their old cameras. I mean, Panasonic thought, we shouldn't have stopped making those compacts. Let's bring them back. It's pity it's brought back the worst ones, but we won't go there. But how long will it be before somebody thinks, do you know what? We could remanufacture these. We've still got all the tooling. All the electronics are cheap enough now. The sensors are old. Let's start it up again.
Chuck just put a comment up, right? What's going on? People paying $100 plus for 15-year-old point and shoots. This is another trend that's happening left, right, and center right now. I mean, you've been probably reading some rumor mills about, companies are remaking some of the point and shoot. Exactly what you just said, Rod. Canon are thinking about the G7s again. All these old school cameras and. You don't know, right? At the moment it's a trend, and also exactly what Rod just talked about. They are trying to manage the decline, so they're trying to see what can they do to continue to make more money from you and I, existing users. Like I said right from the beginning, we are existing users, right?
It's like us. It's like this lemon's drying up, but we still think we can squeeze a bit more juice out of it yet. Squeeze a bit harder.
Yeah, squeeze a bit
Sell
harder.
Sell the lemon juice for more than we ever had before.
Yeah. And it's really sad to see. Once again, bring back Pocket 3 from DJI as an example, because we have seen Canon filed a patent, I think last year, the year before, about a gimbalized camera. It's a patent, so there's no design, no physical teasers or product prototypes or anything like that, but they filed a patent of a gimbalized camera. So it almost looked a Pocket 3 equivalent. So they may be thinking about something. They might be trying to do a little bit of a catch-up. How successful it is, we don't know. Whether that product will eventually come out, we don't know. But
why copy something that somebody has already done about as well as it can be done? That's negative in itself, isn't it? Don't you think?
It is and it isn't. It isn't, because if you look at how DJI's business practice is, because they're now big, they have the resources to do it. The latest Osmo 360, for instance, that's an example. So why do you want to fight the space where Insta is already dominating the market, right? And the same thing goes a few years back, when GoPro was basically the king of action camera. And why would DJI decided to make the Osmo Action to compete in the action market when there's already got the GoPro and Insta doing something similar, right? And I think DJI had the resources, and they think they could potentially build not only better product for cheaper price, but also they can give you a user experience that nobody else had. And that's the thing that I already talked about, the ecosystem that they try so hard to build, which is, for instance, their color science. The color science is very consistent across the entire product lineup. So if you use DJI drone, the color is very much the same as the Pocket 3, very much the same as the Action 5, very much the same as any cameras that they had. So there's no color variation, or at least to a degree that you would notice the difference. So that is good from a camera, from a photographer or content creator's point of view, from a filmmaker's point of view. You don't have to spend time color matching in the post-production. And that is good. And then you come along with the user experience, the user interface. Everything looks almost identical. The menu system, even though they're different cameras, but the menu system, how they lay out the buttons and icons are exactly the same. So if you buy one product, you use it for a while, you pick up a brand new product from DJI, you can go in straight away without having to learn too much because it looks identical. Then you got the mics, the wireless mic. It works across all products at the moment. So once you get into the ecosystem, that's it. You are basically done. And that's something that Insta doesn't have. That's something that GoPro doesn't have. And that's a lot of things that even as big as Canon, Nikon, and Sony, OM System, Ricoh, Pentax don't have. They don't have these sort of ecosystem thing going. So that's the problem.
All I was questioning was if Canon is filing a patent for a gimbalized camera, I would have thought it wouldn't stack up too well against DJI. That's all I was questioning, not the principle of having one. But it would, if it would be nice if camera makers did just try to innovate a little bit. I mean, I would quite like a flat camera like my old Nikon Coolpix 990.
Yeah,
remember that flat camera? Just imagine if the camera unit in front of that was gimbalized. Wouldn't need to have a lot of movement, just a little bit of gimbal movement. That'd probably be a lot better stabilized than most IBIS systems. But just going off of the slide tangent, said Chuck L saying, what's going on with people paying $100 plus and more for 50-year-old point and shoots?
Yeah.
I used to review point and shoots 15 years ago. I've no idea how many I reviewed, dozens upon dozens. We have forgotten just how grim they were. They were not good. These were images that did not stand close inspection.
No, they definitely didn't stand the best of time, right? The
Any kind of inspection. Yes.
And you know what, but the thing is, this is what some of the young people are experiencing, or like to at least feel, trendy because other people using it. And that's why the secondhand market is suddenly exploded. Yeah, you're right. There, some of these cameras don't even worth $100 in my opinion. They're probably worth $5, at most. But they are paying hundreds at the moment for some of these cameras. Good or bad, that may be a little bit of a stimulant for the market in short terms. Hopefully they're bringing some interesting thing out that will at least entice me to get something. But other than that, we just need some innovation. We need some new ideas, creative ideas from manufacturers. We need something better than what we're seeing right now. So I don't know. The title is The Prediction for 2026 and Beyond. And I would like to hear from all of you. What would you think, or what would you like to see from camera manufacturers to do in the next few years? And that would make you have the urge to buy new cameras. And Rod, what's your prediction? Let's start off with changeable cameras.
Say that again. Change.
Interchangeable cameras. So, in terms of trend, what do you think? That's going to happen.
Interchangeable lens cameras.
Yes.
Honestly, I would love to have something wonderfully upbeat and positive to say. I think for the next couple of years, we're just going to see cameras being developed technically for more and more niche situations.
Yeah.
With gradually rising prices. I don't think we're going to see any significant advances in what stills photography in stills photography and what stills photographers might want to see. I think that particular line of development has kind of ground to a halt. But on a positive side, do the perfect cameras for stills photography already exist, and have some of them gone out of production when they shouldn't have done?
Yeah. Okay, someone already coming in. Nomadic Tonka say they would like to see an updated S35 cine camera with interchangeable MFT mount plate and high dynamic range. So technically, you want a bit better sensors, basically. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see something new. Especially in the MFT space. And so far, we haven't seen a lot of the developments. But I think in my eyes, I would like to see better designs. And hopefully, the current retro push will kind of give a little bit more incentive for camera manufacturers to bring out a little bit more better looking cameras. That's like I said, that's the only thing that gets me going these days. I already have the cameras that I need for work. I don't need to buy new cameras, but every time when I buy new cameras, it has to have that look that I really want, and not necessarily the feature sets. Like a lot of the retro cameras that I have don't necessarily have the latest features from the top-end flagship cameras, but like I said, all I needed is the exposure triangle. I don't need anything else. So as long as it looks good, more likely I will buy it than not. What about compact cameras? Since that the compact cameras are kind of trendy now, we're seeing potentially a wave of new compact cameras coming back to the market.
Who's buying them? Who's buying them?
Many.
Maybe that
young people buy them.
I don't know any. It's so long ago for me. I can't imagine what it was like. No, I think in a funny kind of way, people are embracing the crappiness.
The crappiness.
Yes.
That's a technical
because
word.
It is. I'm sorry. That was probably a rather impolite word to use. They are, because it's different to what we have now. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone here uses analog effects in a NIT collection, but that has filters for creating color fringing, chromatic aberration. It has a filter for introducing a kind of edge softness and distortion horrible cheap lenses.
Yeah.
There is a demand for this stuff. People want this kind of information in perfection, just as people like light leaks now and grain and your color shifts of film.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to like the horrible tacky effects you get from cheap point and shoots from 10 and 15 years ago.
Harsh flash.
Don't knock it.
Yeah,
That's back.
yes.
Continuous lighting. Who wants continuous lighting when you can have a horrible flash and red eye?
Yeah.
It won't be long before I'm not going to say Nick Collection. Somebody's going to add in a red eye filter that puts it in instead of taking it out.
Oh my god,
Because everybody wants that 80s disco look, where you just got a white face in a sea of gloom and a pink eyes,
and you can't see the background.
That's right. People are going to ask for that. They're going to ask for that.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
Rob Mill just said Ricoh GR4 just leaked thinner than the GR3, but it still looked very much the same, to be honest. I mean, I've seen the photo. It hasn't really changed, you know. I think dimensionally it may be a little bit thinner, thicker, whatever, taller, slightly wide. Something has changed because the new camera, new shell. But the form factor, I think the overall design is still very much a GR. So because they're not going to change the iconic look, just a bit like Leica M. Leica M's always have a Leica M look. Bigger, taller, thinner, whatever, more expensive. It's still the same look.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised it's thinner. Like, is that what we needed? A smaller GR, perhaps. Don't know, but
what I would like to see again is the design, right? I recently pick up this old school Olympus point and shoot film camera. I haven't put a roll through it. So, do you remember this?
Oh yes, yeah. It's upside down, Jimmy. Other way
upside
up.
Down.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an iconic.
Nice case.
Iconic look. Yep. You flip it open.
Nice case, Jimmy. That looks expensive. That looks expensive. Yeah.
It's not actually that expensive, this one. I got it in mint condition, as you can tell. It's a very basic camera, but it's a very capable camera. It's got a pretty good lens on it. I think it's a 35 f3.5 or 2.8. Yeah, 3.5.
I had one.
Yeah, so it's a really, really good camera. I mean, what if someone makes something like this, just a little bit of the design, a little bit of a flair going, you know, in the digital form? Wouldn't that get people buying? I would get something quirky like this. You know, I think it would be really cool. I think it would be very, very cool. You know, like we are so stubborn, you know, well, not we, but then the camera manufacturers are so stubborn when it comes to camera design. They're just always going to be a black box with a lens stuck on it, a bunch of buttons lying around. It's boring. It's really, really boring, all these point and shoot cameras. 6
function buttons.
You know,
I'm still getting over that. Don't start me again.
You know, remember in the 80s and 90s, how many quirky point and shoot cameras we saw? So many really weird designs, and some are cool, some are obviously bad, but at least people try different things to get the designs going, and the different colorways, different materials. You know, like this one's got a leatherette covering on it, and then there are some with, you know, titanium body shell. There's some with there are all kinds of things going, but we don't have that these days. Which every point and shoot cameras you see, even you know, not now, but even 15 years ago, they're all very boring looking black box, you know, and it's just you know, to me it's just like a template, you know. They just let's just stick with the templates. We don't care about design, you know. We just keep increasing the numbers. That's all we need.
I think 15 years ago, point and shoot cameras were very varied. I mean, the quality isn't what we would be happy with today, I don't think, but the designs were extremely varied. So all credit to them for that. Just my MacBook is just about to die. Sorry, carry on. I've just got to find my charger.
No problem. So just want to ask the audience, would anyone have a gut or want to buy something like this in digital form in the future? I think I would. for sure.
I would.
And I'm pretty sure at the moment, like, people are craving for point and shoot cameras and things like that. If there is a new wave of point and shoot cameras coming up in 2026 and beyond, and they need to be a little bit more funky and cool before the new generation will buy into it. And that's my take. That's my view. They can't really go back to the old formula of having just a black box, because I just think that, we've gone past that stage now. Even with mirrorless systems, we see the success coming up from the Fujifilm X100, the XT, the Nikon ZF and ZFC. Retro vibes or good design cameras sells. Period. And I think camera manufacturers need to pay more attention to the design, and rather than just keep on sticking with the old formula. We can just improve the spec. We don't have to pay too much attention in the design of the camera. But I think they're wrong. I think they need to really focus back on the design and get people going again. People are very stale now. There's a thing that market just looks very boring, not exciting.
People don't necessarily want advanced cameras. They want advanced looks. They want more variation in what comes out of them.
Yeah.
Not just more technical advances inside them. I think there ought to be an OM half.
Yep.
And instead of having a film simulation dial on the top, you have an art filter dial on the top, because the art filters that we already have, they go much further than Fujifilm film simulations. Some of those, like the grainy film filters, are very good for black and white. Yeah. The pop art effect is really quite nice. I think the pale light and tone is a bit, but things like dynamic tone, they're quite interesting. Pitch those as film simulations, make a pen half, and there you go.
There you go. Yes, and I would like to see something what Sweden one season of actually say that 1-inch sensor compact or compact bridge camera like the Stylus ones. That would be cool. I mean, new AI features. I'm not entirely sure whether we want the AI in it. I think point and shoot camera is supposed to be fun and casual. I know. Yeah, we may want something really sophisticated, just like the Sony RX100, which is a very sophisticated camera for what it is. It's a tiny camera. It's got 1-inch sensors, got a lot going on with such a tiny body. But I think a lot of the time we may be a little bit too ambitious as a photographer. We want everything in a tiny thing. But at the same time, when you do take out these tiny cameras, all you want is really just take it out and snap that moment. A bit like a phone. So you don't really need a complicated thing. You just want a reliable thing. Just come out and put and snap that shot, capture it, and done. And that's exactly what the X half is. And then, although it's a bit slower for that price, but overall the concept is there. So if camera manufacturers continue to do this sort of thing, like if Olympus does bring out some of this old school Olympus point and shoot camera, revitalize it in digital form, give us a good sensor, I think even if they're basic, I think it was still going to sell very, very well in today's market, because I think that we needed a little bit of a like old school vibe injection from all kinds of camera manufacturers. We miss a lot of the old school designs, right? And not just us. I think newer generations of photographer, younger people are looking for that as well. That's why exactly what Chuck was saying. Why would people pay so much money for point and shoot?
People are looking for difference.
Yeah.
People want something that makes them stand out from those around them. I'm going to attempt to say Lim 2001 Burger makes a good point about a photo shoot or a photo workshop he did.
Okay, there you go. I'm trying to bring that up. Yep.
We can all read that the model chose the Digicam style photo with flash as a profile photo over the one shot with the full frame camera, because technical quality arguably has had its day. It's not what the creator market wants anymore. It wants creative difference, not technical sophistication. anyone can do technical sophistication now, but not everyone can be different.
Do you think, like anyone can chip into this as well? Do you think the next trend has to be those who are brave enough to go anti-trend?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, so definitely. I think
for the past 20 years, everyone using big camera, nice camera, shallow depth of field, and this and that. Looks absolutely perfect. Photos. But then everyone's getting the same perfect photos everywhere.
Yeah,
we're getting a little bit bored of those type of photos, and suddenly, someone just a very simple, harsh flash direct into the model's eyes, and then get into these harsh-looking images. Oh, that's different. That's cool. Right? I haven't seen this in 20 years.
It's different. Exactly. Yeah. It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
Yes.
Yeah. Take Randy has made a point about menus, and it just made me think of something. I like a camera with where you had menu 1 and menu 2. Menu 1 only has 6 things on it. The 6 things you use all the time. But instead of having to go like 8 tabs across on the regular menus, like you would on a Canon, for example, you have it on a mode dial or a button on the back of the camera, menu 1, menu 2. Press menu 1. There's only 6 things on it. And it can be what you like. But a quick menu that you can access very simply.
Yeah.
That'd be quite nice. Just designs that simplify rather than
it is. I mean, like another good example is we talked about point and shoot camera for photographers, but from a videographer's point of view, you also see another trend coming back, which is camcorders are coming back. Whether you know it or not, camcorders are actually coming back. Canon is already announcing 2 4K camcorders, and Sony is also thinking about some new models. Not so super Panasonic, but Panasonic traditionally they have a whole bunch of camcorders as well. So
I think there's a couple. I think there's a couple of Panasonic still. That's kind of resurfacing.
Yeah. So the trend is also coming back as well. So people who may be thinking about, I might have a hybrid camera that can do it, but at the moment the trend is getting a point and shoot cameras and a camcorder. These are the vibes at the moment.
getting single products designed for single jobs rather than a product designed for 5 jobs. So get 5 things for 5 jobs, not 1 thing for 5 jobs. So there's camcorders have a lot to be said for them. Long zoom range, you don't need swap lenses. They've got some pretty profound limitations, but they do a good job of what they're designed to do.
So I think, like when it comes to prediction for the 2026 and beyond, is that we're going to see a whole load of more of these kind of retro theme-based surround ideas for the industry, whether it's going to be cameras or lenses or whatever, filters, things are going to go trying to push it into that direction. That's my prediction, and you're going to see a lot more updates. Fujifilm, obviously, there's always been their stronghold at the moment with these kind of retro-looking cameras. OM system, if they stuck with the OM line, definitely. But if they do decide at some point bring back the pen, that will be another retro kind of theme cameras they're going to bring back, and we certainly hope so. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to miss the, you're missing the pen cameras, right? I'm one of them as well. So I'm hoping to see a pen, whether it's going to be a flagship Pen F replacement or just the lower end, the Pen EPL or EP series. I don't mind, as long as there is a pen. I think it would be quite cool to have one, but I'm pretty sure they will sell pretty well as well, as long as they price it right. And the only thing is obviously the big boys, the Canon and Sony. Sony doesn't really have anything retro to fall back on because their brand is relatively new. But they do have some Minolta catalogs that they can fall back on. But they can't use the Minolta name now because they literally erased it from the history. And then which is quite sad.
1984. It's like George Orwell. that was one of the principles of 1984, that if you ban the word, eventually the meaning of that word ceases to exist as well. So
I know,
no more Minolta.
Which is quite sad. Like when people complain that OM System lost the name of Olympus on the cameras, they really complain, infuriated. People may be too young to remember Minolta. I was furious when Sony decided to literally erase Minolta's name completely out of the camera market and just stick the big Sony mark on top of the camera. That got me going.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be like rebranding Leicas as Panasonics.
Pretty much.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry.
You see, like people are like now praising Sony this, Sony that, but to be quite frank, they bought out Minolta and used the technologies and lens and things like that. Got the engineers on board and do all the R&D. Without the Minolta, Sony wouldn't exist as today. Kudos to them. They push the technology boundaries and things like that. Move into mirrors. It's definitely good. But really, at the root is Minolta. So you never know. If Sony do decide to do something retro, they may look into some of the old Minolta cameras. I'm not entirely sure whether they would.
They weren't that retro. You'd have to go back to the 70s and 80s to get properly retro Minoltas, wouldn't you? Because their electronic ones are quite fancy. But
they had some Minolta's 110 cameras. Right? Remember the Minolta 110 cameras? That's kind of funky looking, spaceship looking thing.
Let's not have those back. And let's not have Kodak disc cameras back. Definitely not Kodak disc cameras. But there's other. I know it's still with us, but I miss Fujika.
Fujika, yes.
Yeah. But there we go. Praktica, I think, has long been bought out by kind of Far Eastern brands. I'm trying not to say brand impersonators, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but speaking of these old brands, well, apparently, if you guys been following the news, that Kodak point-and-shoot cameras has resurfacing and selling extremely well worldwide, and they now be the #1 point-and-shoot brand in Japan, overtaking Fujifilm. Believe me or not. Even though the Fujifilm compacts now are not technically Fujifilm now, they licensed the name out, so it's not really them. But for some reasons, because of the whole point-and-shoot vibes going, they suddenly sell everywhere. And because people do know Kodak as a name, as a proper photography name, it has some heritage to it. And at the moment, they are reaping the rewards. You know, like they get this really horrible, cheap point and shoot, but people are buying them. It's
just clever marketing. Get enough of them out there amongst enough influential people, and hope enough people buy them before the world realizes how bad they are. Unless they're good. Unless they're good.
Well, actually, there is one that I actually want to buy. It's actually selling on Amazon at the moment. It's actually quite cool looking Kodak, and I think selling for £79. So I may actually pull the trick and buy one just to see what it feels like. And I don't know, just for fun, right? You know, and the things that I want to look trendy in front of people, so I may want to carry one on my neck, so I might get people talking. But anyway, so that's the camera thing, and. Let's talk a little bit about lenses. We've got a little bit of time left, so let's talk a little bit of lenses. By the way, you know, if you guys want to continue to contribute on the camera side of it, you're very welcome to continue to do it on the chat room, and also leave some comment down below when the stream is finished. And so lenses. Okay, that's a strange thing going in terms of prediction, because we literally have all kinds of lenses these days, especially the explosion of Chinese lens makers in the last 10 years. But there is a lot of shift and change over the last few years, especially coming from some of the big brand names in China are now falling behind the others. So let's talk a little bit about that. But before we go into the Chinese brands, let's talk about existing brands that we know and love or not. For instance, Zeiss, right? So first of all, sorry, let me clarify a little bit first. I'm not going to talk about the native lenses like Canon lenses, Nikon lenses, the Sony G Master or Olympus lenses. I'm talking about third-party lenses because to me they're more interesting. They're the one who are trying to break the mold, trying not to compete directly with the native lenses, because that's where a lot of the innovations and quirkiness come from, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. So Zeiss, as a company, I adore Zeiss Optics for a very long time. I do like the general renderings since the age of the film era, and I do have a few Zeiss lenses. Not a lot. I have a few that I love. I sold a few in the past. Those that I kept are usually the ones that I really enjoy. But in the last few years, Zeiss has kind of fallen out of fashion in one way or the other. But all of a sudden, in the last 2 weeks, obviously the name has resurfaced, simply because the brand new Sony RX100 III had brought the name back, because that's the lens that they use in the latest full-frame point-and-shoot camera. Good or bad, that's another thing, because we can talk a little bit about that if we really want to. But because of that camera, Zeiss has resurfaced as, that's a Zeiss, that's a brand called Zeiss. And so now some of the young people might start to look into the Zeiss lenses, but they might find it a little bit shocking that there isn't many choices from the catalog
that you can afford.
Or afford, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have a lot of experience with Zeiss lenses, Rod? Or
I have some experience with the Sony Zeiss lenses, and it's not been particularly good experience. I don't have any experience of proper Zeiss lenses as made by Zeiss. No.
Yeah, but I find that, Zeiss is. I don't know what they're doing as a company for the last few years. They are definitely doing something, because I think 2 brand new manual focus lenses came out, and so they are still developing lenses, but they're not doing autofocus lenses by Zeiss themselves. All the autofocus lenses are usually in conjunction with another company, but most prominently probably by Sony. But Sony already stopped making zoom lenses or lenses that has the Zeiss lens on it. They basically keep promoting the G Master series now.
That's right, yeah. I think they decided to bring their premium line in-house. Yes. Just a quick aside, talking about lenses. What I'd really love to see in future cameras is better manual focus confirmation.
Right.
So you know how you have electronic rangefinders in cameras?
Yes.
If those were just a little bit better and more positive, and if there's a better interaction between the lens and the camera, so that all cameras automatically magnify the view with manual focusing, even with third-party lenses, or even just had an automatic focus distance confirmation, so the AF was still there, just not controlling the focus.
Wow.
That would be very, very good for lenses, because manual focus lenses have a lot to offer, and focusing manually at first is quite a tiresome thing to do, but it's actually quite liberating, because
it is.
You don't have to worry where you don't have to move the focus point. You look at the thing you're photographing, and you turn the focus till the thing you want is sharp, and that's all there is to it. It's quite liberating.
That's why I love manual lenses, and you're right there. I think if manufacturers if they want to make manual focus lenses, make sure that they have the interactions. There are some lenses are like that, like Laowa's chip lenses are like that. If they're chip, have some electrical contact to it, so it will tell the camera that is a manual focus lens. When you turn the barrel, it will automatically do whatever you set the camera to do, whether it's going to be magnified or peaking. It's automatic, so that is really good. I hope to see more of those in other brands, in full frame cameras. Like Zeiss at the moment is still a full menu. There's no electrical contacts in them. So I really, really hope to see that. Obviously, some native lenses, although I wasn't going to talk about it, but some manual focus lenses from Nikkor, for instance, they have electrical contacts, so they will actually do that. Like the famous and very, very expensive 56.95. Was that the Nikkor?
58. Not
58, 15 knot. So that's got electrical contact, so that will tell the cameras to magnify or whatever in there. So that's probably the only one I can think of coming out from a mainstream camera manufacturers.
I don't feel that manual focus on autofocus lenses works very well. I don't think focus by wire is anywhere near as satisfactory as focusing with a physical cam in the lens.
Yes.
So my ideal manual focus lens would have a mechanical focus action, but be chipped to talk to the camera to say, look, this is manual focus, do your part, do your job.
so that is one company I want to talk about, even though there's not much to talk about because they haven't really been doing a lot, to be quite honest, and the speed of development also worries me a little bit how much longer they're gonna do. I know they do high-end cine lenses, but those are not something that we would buy because they're just so expensive. But from a consumer levels, the camera optical department, I don't know how profitable they are, but I'm pretty sure they're not shifting a lot of lenses at all. Zeiss is a big company. They do a lot of optics for other medical stuff. Even like spectacle glasses. They make glasses like this as well. So Zeiss is a big company, but I'm really purely focusing on the camera side of it.
I think Zeiss would be better off doing what Voigtlander does and Lauer does, which is to produce very specialized, maybe ultra-wide lenses that simply aren't practical if you have autofocus. So Voigtlander makes some very wide, very fast lenses that aren't very big.
Yeah.
And it's only possible because they've not had to build in autofocus actuators.
Yeah.
Or the kind of... They haven't had to produce an optical design where you perhaps have to compromise with a small focus group that can actually be moved quite quickly.
Yeah. And that's one brand. And since we already mentioned Voigtlander, let's talk about Voigtlander and also what else in Japan? I can't remember now. Voigtlander, because Voigtlander, although it's a German brand, but then also because it's owned by Cosina.
Yeah.
So it's practically a Japanese company. So it's interesting because Zeiss is maybe struggling, but Voigtlander is selling pretty well. I wouldn't say massive numbers, but they are doing definitely much better than Zeiss when it comes to consumer behavior.
Well, they're not silly money. Some of these specifications are very exotic. The lenses aren't always that big, and are also making them for specific mounts as well. So that if you fancy a Voigtlander, you don't have to get a Leica bayonet and an adapter, because they make Sony FE mount lenses, they make Nikon Z lenses. I think they make a couple for Canon RF, but I think that's a little bit more complicated because I don't think Canon sensors are quite so tolerant of off-axis light. Because I've used the same Voigtlander lens on Sony and Canon. It works fine on Sony, but with Canon you just get the purple edges, where the sensor doesn't like the angle of incidence of the light rays from the corners of the image. But that aside, I think Voigtlander now makes a lot of lenses. And I think even though it's a Japanese company using the Voigtlander brand, they seem to have adopted the philosophy of Voigtlander, which is well-engineered specialist lenses for enthusiasts or connoisseurs, you might say. I don't think they're snobbish in that way. But lenses for the discerning.
I mean, a lot of the Voigtlander users that I speak to, they are... A lot of them are very into, the aesthetic of photography more than the actual textures and sharpness, that associate with modern lenses. They are really looking into the look and feel of it, and also I think Voigtlander in that aspect it really delivers, because all the Voigtlander, anyone who used Voigtlander lenses will tell you that we got a Voigtlander look, a bit like Leica. We got the Leica look. Voigtlander has its own kind of look. Whatever lens you choose, it always has a certain aesthetic, which is kind of like the signature now. So people now it has a reputation. So people want a special look. They would kind of look into the Voigtlander catalog to see what sort of thing they can buy.
They don't do well in lab tests, but they do produce a particular look. I had a Voigtlander color Scopard 35mm f2.5 in Leica mount I used on Sony. I had some vignetting, quite a lot, had some edge softness, but I've never seen saturation and contrast like it. Because most digital lenses, they're quite clinical and safe, aren't they? But this little Voigtlander, it was very, very contrasty, very saturated and vibrant. Definitely a particular look.
Yeah, definitely. And now let's move on to another manual focus lens that I always admire, and I'm pretty sure that if you're Micro Four Third users and following this channel would know that I always praise them, and that is Lauer from China. So you know that for the last 10-15 years there are absolutely dozens, if not hundreds, of Chinese lens makers making manual lenses because they are new to the market. They want to be as cost efficient as possible to bring their product into the world and also get the brand recognized. So you will see so many lenses coming out from China, manual focus lenses coming out from China, left, right, and center. Good or bad, that's another thing, but loads of them, right? One that really stood out that that is, I would consider as the best optically is Laowa. I think Laowa has made its reputation for producing some of the best, if not the best, manual focusing lenses in China for the past decade. Some of them have won awards. I mean, one of them I particularly like for the MFT platform is the 6mm f2, and I think that is a phenomenal lens. There you go. That's Rod's got a copy there. I love that lens.
Yeah, I'd rather have the stills one. I've got the cine one, but it works just as well for stills. But I think this is the point I would make, that so 6mm, that's a 12mm f2 equivalent.
Yep.
I don't think you could make that with autofocus.
Yeah.
I don't think you get the same optical quality, and it would certainly be twice the size.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I mean, and they have been really focused on a couple of things. Instead of beating the mainstream lens makers by offering all sorts of focal length, they just purely concentrating on two things: ultra wide and macro. That's all they're really focusing on. So you see all the lenses coming up from Laowa since the beginning are always going to be ultra wide.
There's also those Argus lenses, which are interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're all f/0.95, I think. They're more conventional focal lengths, but they've got a lovely look.
They have
absolutely gorgeous look. Yeah.
I love them on MFT, and I know they can be adapted to APS-C. I think they do sell APS-C mounts as well for those. And I think they also make Argus for full frame cameras as well.
They do. It's quite expensive. Expensive, but I think it's the quality is quite unique. You know that Fujinon 50mm f1 that you like, that we both like.
Yeah.
Those Argus lenses have that same quality.
Yeah.
That the defocusing is just beautifully smooth.
It is. I mean, I think they really deserve more recognition than it is. And that brings into the next point I'm going to talk about. Because Laowa, as good as they are, as good as I think they are, for the past, I would say 2, maybe 3 years, thing has not gone too well for them. I mean, that's my own experience. And it's because of the autofocus evolutions in China. Right. And there are now increasing presence of autofocus manufacturers in China, or companies who were making manual focusing lenses are now shifting to autofocus. And Laowa, one way or the other, they are very slow in adapting autofocus into the lens lineup. And so far, they only announced 2 autofocus lenses, the 10 and the 12mm, and both for full frame cameras and not for any other mounts. And it's a little bit slow, because now if you look at its own rivals in China, TT Artisan, these are budget manufacturers. The TT Artisan, 7 Artisan, they all have autofocus lenses. As to the Holy, they have autofocus lenses. But by far, the biggest one is Viltrox. Viltrox now in full-blown, full-throttle autofocus mode. Everything autofocus. And they now have so many different variations, from APS-C to full frame, from budget line to medium line to professional line. They are expanding.
Lab
and Pro.
Lab Pro.
Yeah. Lab is the highest, so which is a bit confusing. Yeah, Pro is actually the middle.
It's very confusing. Yeah.
But anyway, but you see where I'm coming from now. Now Viltrox has almost overtaken Laowa's market share, because it's offering a lot of stuff.
I would be sad to see the back of manual focus lenses. I would rather camera makers and camera users gotten more on board with manual focus.
Yeah.
Myself, because it doesn't. The only reason it's difficult is cameras aren't made for it, and people have forgotten the skills.
Yeah.
But it does open doors as well as close them. You know, you rediscover how zone focusing works or hyperfocal focusing. It's very difficult with autofocus.
It is.
So I would like to see cameras being better at being manual. So Fujifilm's kind of done it with the manual exposure dials. I'd kind of like to see a better accommodation of manual focus lenses. Cameras that were better at manual focusing. That's what I would like.
There are not many. There are not many.
No, I mean, I like DSLRs, but DSLRs were the worst because they've got much smaller focusing screens than old school film SLRs.
You need to use that matte screen, right? You know, to see it properly.
It's very difficult to gauge. You know, when DSLRs had 6 megapixel sensors, you could get away with it. But when they've got 24 or 36 or 47, you can't get away with sloppy focusing. But mirrorless cameras is no excuse because they can magnify the image. They magnify the view and you can see straight away. It's astonishing using this lens with manual focus. You would think a 6mm lens, something 20 feet away, it wouldn't matter. But it actually does. You can see the difference. It's especially at f2.
It's interesting, but so in terms of the future from this point, you know, like I've even talked about Sigma and Tamron. I mean, they're both doing fairly well. I mean, Sigma in particular, I think that they have expanded. They have definitely making more interesting lenses. I mean, I have to continue to praise Sigma, you know, after all these years, and they have transformed themselves, managed to transform themselves.
It is genuine transformation from budget lens company to premium. Almost overnight.
I want to ask how many of you actually use old Sigma lenses, like back in the 90s and 80s. I'm pretty sure you're old enough to use them, right?
I've had some. I had a Sigma. Oh, what was it? It was ultra wide. It'll come out to be 8-16 before they went to art and contemporary. It's 8-16 on APS-C. So it's a 12-24, and that was not great. But it was quite cheap for that type of lens.
That's what they were, like Chinese lenses today. They were cheap because they were third party. Sigma lenses were horrible, and I mean, I had the 51.4 because I couldn't afford the Canon 51.4 at the time. You know, the Sigma was half the price. And you can't argue with that. It's a 51.4. So I mean, I got that lens, and it was soft and shooting wide open. Even you stop down to 2.8, and it's still not very great. You have to go down to 5.6 or 6.3 to get something decent. And it also had the ultra wide zoom. What was that? It's a Canon mount full frame. So what was that? I used it on the film cameras. I bought it for the film camera. I can't remember exact focal length now. It was a 2.8 to f4, so variable aperture. Okay. But it was again cheap because the Canon equivalent at the time, I mean, I'm talking about like the early 90s. It was selling for, I don't know, £800, which is a lot of money back then. But the Sigma was like 400, so half the price again. So it's kind of like a no-brainer if you want to experiment this kind of focal length and you can't afford the real thing, and you buy Sigma. And the last Sigma lens that I had was had a nickname. I think they still make the modern version of it. It's called the Bigma. I don't know if you remember the Bigma.
Oh, the Bigma, the 800 5.6. Is that right?
No, it was the 50 to 500. So
okay.
The reason that I think it's got a nickname for Bigma is because it's, first of all, it's got a big zoom range, 50 to 500, which is insane, right? Back in the days. And also, it's a very big, chunky lens, and it also weighs a ton. I think it's about 2 kilo, that lens, so it's a really heavy thing. Optically, it's rubbish. It's probably one of the worst lenses I've ever used. but it's big
Well,
and it looks cool.
I've got some competition for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had enough of bashing Sony, so I'm going to bash Canon for a minute.
Okay.
For a long time, and they still do it, Canon sold the 18-135 for APS-C cameras,
Right.
which is terrible lens, especially past halfway through the zoom range. Past that, it just gets so salty. It's horrible. Oh god, now what's the other one? The other Canon I had, it's gone now. You mentioned Sigma 51.4.
Yep.
Back in the day, Digital Camera World bought about 4 or 5 of those for the different camera bodies they might need to test. So, the idea was you have the best lens you can get for if you want to test camera sensors.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really involved in that decision, but they bought them anyway. And I came along one point and said, this one's not good. And said, oh, it's good. It's expensive Sigma lens, 50mm 1.4. Everybody raves about them. I said, well, they might, but this one, I can't remember what mount it was. It's not good. Not good at all. And I don't think they sent it back. So if there's a spell when a certain camera brand wasn't doing well for resolution, that's probably because of that lens. But, you do get sample variation. You do now and again have to send lenses back.
Yeah, I mean, I have experienced that before, the variation. But speaking of that, now Sigma lenses are really, really good. They really have transformed themselves. All the lenses you buy now, literally in the past 2 to 3 years, they are as good as you can get from modern lenses. I mean, I can't really fault them. I've tested a few so far, and then they're all fairly recent lenses, and they just blow me away. It's just so good. If I given a choice, why would I buy? Why would I want to buy? The camera's native lenses. The Canon, Sony, G Master have to spend double the price when Sigma can be as good.
The main thing is to make sure that the lens correction profiles are embedded, because you may need that later. It's an issue with Canon because Canon RAW files don't contain lens correction data.
No.
So if you open if you have a Canon image that you bring in the Capture One and it shot the lens that Capture One doesn't take very seriously, like one of the kit lenses, it won't have a correction profile and you'll be in all sorts of trouble. Because some of the cheaper Canon zooms these days have such native distortion that the digital correction is essential. Their design, that's how they get the focal range and the zoom range and the cost where they want them, by accepting that compromise. I have remembered that other Canon lens, Jimmy. Okay, the latest Canon telephoto, it's the cheap RF, I think it's the RF 70 or 75 to 300.
Oh yeah.
No
plastic,
IS.
Fantastic.
Very cheap. That is the same lens they were selling for DSLRs right back at the dawn of DSLRs, and it was a bad lens then. It's an awful lens, but Canon sadly doesn't know when cheap becomes too cheap.
Well, you never know, Rod. They may be going for this old school throwback, right? They just bring back this old crappy one. It may work. People are looking for the flaws.
Yes. I think. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing some of those dainty little Ixus cameras back.
Yeah.
Those early ones, because they felt like they were like hewn from solid metal. They were lovely little cameras. Of course, the tech wasn't very good, but the cameras were lovely. But Canon has made some duds. I think cheap Nikon Coolpixes were probably the worst of all, because some of those were just awful. But there's so much competition there. But if these camera makers do bring back the point and shoots, please bring back the good ones, not the nasty ones.
Preferably those with analog dials, that would be awesome, right? The Nikon 35 Ti, the 28 Ti. Oh, those are phenomenal, quirky little cameras with this analog needle, at the top. It's brilliant.
Needles. You're hoping, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Why not? We go full blown, right? That would be good. Phil has got a nice actually comment here. What happened to Tokina?
Yeah, what did happen to Tokina? I think they just slipped beneath the waves, to be honest. The distribution.
Do they still make lenses? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, actually.
I don't know.
Very good question, actually, Phil.
A lot of these places still keep a website going without actually doing anything. Well, yes. I was trying not to say that, but yeah.
That's weird. I mean, because, I actually quite like Tokinas before, and I actually do have very much one Tokina lens that I have still in my possession. It's actually a classic, a cult classic. It's a hidden gem for those who may have some history of Tokina lenses. This was the Tokina 28-70 f2.2 to 2.8. It's an interesting lens because apparently the lens is a direct copy of the French and US cine lens. So it has a very quirky rendering. It looks really cool. It's a Canon EF mount, so I may actually adapt to my my Nikon to test it out because I do have an adapter for EF lenses to Nikon Z, so I may actually try that. So just to see what it looks like in modern days. It's a really cool throwback lens that is in a box for the past 20 years. I haven't used it for 20 years, so I don't know whether it's actually got any mold or fungus in it. So I have to take out to have a look.
Well, you can still buy Tokina lenses.
Oh, you can.
Not in the UK, but B&H is selling them in the US.
Oh, B&H sells everything, right?
B&H sells things that haven't been made for 20 years.
They just go back to the warehouse somewhere in the bottom shelf somewhere.
I have a very interesting Tokina zoom for Pentax K-mount from SLR days. It's a 28-70. I think it's a 2.8-4.
Right.
What's interesting about it is they had different priorities for lens design back then, I think, because it doesn't really have any chromatic aberration and it doesn't really have any distortion. And I don't really know why. I'm sure it has lots of limitations in other areas. It's probably not very sharp.
No.
But the priorities have changed. Lens manufacturers now seem much more inclined to tolerate chromatic aberration and distortion on the basis that, you can fix it later.
Yeah.
Which wasn't an option back in the day.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and I think that part of the appeal of the Tokina that I have is the same thing: lack of distortion, not much chromatic aberrations on it.
No,
and it's a bit soft, but that's the look of it, And it's an interesting lens, and the Tokina lenses that I have was, it's built like a tank. It's really solid, the whole thing. I loved it, and I'm not sure what happened after it. I think they become more plasticky, they become more cheap, and I don't know what really happened to them, to be honest.
I think they got into a kind of budget war with Tamron and Sigma.
Tamron. Yeah.
But Tamron's raised its game as well. I've got a couple of full-frame Tamron zooms, which are really quite excellent.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I wouldn't
we haven't
be
talked about
confident of
Tamron.
matching this. Yeah.
We haven't talked about Tamron. Yeah.
Do you remember the trombone zooms?
Yeah.
Where you didn't have a ring, you had to slide the collar.
Yeah.
They were horrible to use.
It's not accurate at all.
And I think they had to ban them to look quite rude.
Yes.
But good. Good. Glad they're gone.
It's almost like a pump, you slide in and out, you zoom in, and then,
don't do that, Jimmy.
and then you have to turn to focus right at the same time.
That's right.
It's almost like you're twisting when you're zooming in and out, just twisting it. It's weird.
Yeah. Vague focusing on top of vague zooming. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's definitely not the preferred design, and that's why it fades out fairly quickly, that design. But Tamron seems to be okay, and although it's still more on a smaller size these days. The catalog is not as extensive compared to Sigma. I think out of all the third-party lens makers from Japan, Sigma really is kind of the only one that kind of popped out and survived and managed to improved and revolutionizes the whole thing overall.
I think Tamron as well as chosen the Sony mount as its main business too.
Yeah.
So it does do other mounts as well, but I think it's picked on Sony as being the main breadwinner.
Yeah, I mean that goes with the Samyang as well, where Samyang's the same thing, and they're mainly selling E-mount lenses rather than all the others, and I think that's what majority of the people these days, when it comes to full frame launches, coming from a third party point of view, and it also tells us that they believe, at least that's what they believe, that Sony is currently the #1 seller. So if I'm going to make a lens, I'm going to make one that sells, right? So they're thinking, okay, Sony's the most popular. Let's make Sony E-mount first. Let's prioritize them. And even though they may want to make others, we can't say the same thing for Canon because Canon has its own different story altogether. But Nikon, they definitely put Nikon in the back second hand now, so they don't really want to touch Z mount unless they've proven that these lenses are selling, the reputation's building up. Then they think, okay, maybe a good time to release a Nikon Z mount, like months after that.
I think Jimmy, I'm going to have to get out of my Canon system. I think I might have to go. It's the lens choice, and also what's.
Yeah. Oh, what happened to Rod? I'm not sure what happened to Rod. His face suddenly frozen. Oh, you're back. You're back.
No. I was in very deep thought. I wasn't moving. I think what's wearing me down is everything's very plasticky.
Yeah.
And there's a particular feeling about everything. It's quite dry and asthmatic. Canon cameras have always had that kind of dry shutter sound. I don't know. It shouldn't bother me, but it does. So might have to go.
Right.
Chuck L saying, "Are we talking about the old Canon 100 400?" I never used that. I have no idea, but I have got a 50D, and every lens looks better on a different camera to the 50D because the 50D, bless it, has not got the best sensor Canon ever made.
But what curious me, Chuck, is that how can you use a Canon on the EM1? Are you using one of those speed booster adapters?
Get an adapter.
Yeah.
No, you probably wouldn't need a speed booster, would you? Because you've already got the flange distance. You just need some generic physical adapter, don't you?
But a lot of the Canon EF lenses, you need to control the aperture electronically. So if without the proper connections, you are shooting it wide open all the time. So you can't control it.
Right, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. There you go. So I had that problem because I did try to adapt some of the Canon lenses before when I still have Canon lenses and cameras, and I couldn't because there's no electrical contact unless you go for the speed boosters that allow you to autofocus them because they have the electronic contact, but the autofocus rubbish, so you still have to use the manual focus, but at least you can control the aperture by turning the dials because it has the connection. It's a weird system. Yeah.
If we're talking about aperture, it's too late for Nikon now, but ditching aperture rings was the worst thing Nikon ever did.
Yeah.
Because when retro came back in,
yeah,
having no lenses with aperture rings, I think is really hurting.
Chuck actually say using a Viltrox adapter. So it has connection. Okay.
Oh right, there you go.
I may have a look into it now.
Yeah.
Although I do have a adapter that allows me to use EF lenses on my Nikon Z cameras with electrical contact. In fact, it actually works very well. So it does do the AF quite well. So at the moment, I have some choices now. Maybe I can go back to some of these older EF lenses and use it on my Nikon. So that would be quite interesting. But so we talk a little bit about these lenses, a little bit of history, about what they're doing right now. What's the future about some of these manufacturers? So just to start up with a couple of predictions, shall we? I think China. Let's talk about China first. Chinese manufacturers are going to continue to push AF. I think that's what we're going to see. But for the past decade, all we see, manual focus or autofocus, what we see so far are mostly prime lenses, fixed focal length. So my prediction is that they're going to start venturing into zoom lenses very soon. because that will be a untapped market by any of the Chinese lens makers at the moment.
I think they might run into trouble because Tamron and Sigma are already pretty good at this.
Yep, they are. But then also at the same time, and they could potentially beat them on price. That's what Chinese always do. You know, like if they suddenly do something that as good, but for cheaper, people may consider them. And you know, like Viltrox is pretty good at it. You know, like they do something really, really amazing, and they undercut everybody else's though in terms of price to get people on board. And now Viltrox is developed such a reputation for performing lenses, but I also hear at the same time that a lot of the Viltrox lenses had very big variations. Some would work really well, some just don't work at all, and some will have flaws and this. So I think they will have to improve on the quality control side of it, you know, make sure that they all, you know, be more consistent when it comes to the output. But that's will come over time. I'm pretty sure they're going to do that. But in terms of prediction, I think that they're going to venture into zoom lenses very, very soon. At the same time, I am a little bit worried about Laowa. If they're not going to catch up, they're going to be left behind. And that's my prediction for Laowa, even though that they may have a more heavy focus on cine lenses of late. In the last few years, they've been really focusing on a lot of cine lenses, specialist lenses.
So's everybody else. There must be a dozen manufacturers making sets of premium cine lenses.
Yep.
Everyone's doing it now. Suri, Laowa, Sigma. I think Zeiss does.
Zeiss do send the cine lenses, but just so expensive. Their ones, like 20 grand a pop.
Yeah. Well, then maybe the next big thing for the Chinese manufacturers is they start making cameras.
Yeah, I mean the thing is,
the Viltrolex, or the what else can I think of?
Yeah, but I think that's my prediction from the Chinese. But when it comes to Japanese manufacturers, not native Canon, Nikon, Sony, and but more like Sigma, Tamron, and maybe Tokina. Now since you mentioned it, I completely forgot about them.
There have in the past been some very considerable similarities between certain Tokina lenses and certain Viltrox lenses.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sharing of expertise between those companies.
It could. And but what I like to see that they will continue to bring us some quirky lenses, because Tamron, for instance, the 35-150 f2 to 2.8 is such a cool lens with very interesting renders and aperture. I know like Canon L mount series, not L mount series, Canon L series lens, and also Sony G Master has already done a very bright aperture zoom lens, the f2 series. But Tamron has also done, you know, another one, 35-150 f2 to 2.8 for considerably less money compared to the Sony and Canon equivalent. Even a different focal length, but that's what they always do anyway. As a third-party manufacturer, they won't go head-to-head with them. They will go on a slightly different focal range just to compete. I'm going to continue to see. I think I'm going to continue to see Tamron and Sigma doing something like this, and perhaps,
I'm going to say it's exactly the opposite.
Really?
Okay. Well, no, I'm not. But I think the lenses you like quite big. Yeah. I would like to see more of these, and I think we might.
Little prime.
It's not prime. It's a zoom.
It's a zoom?
Yeah.
I can't quite see. Okay.
It's the, trying to work out how this works laterally. It's the Sony 28-60 for full frame. Right. Obviously, it's compromised on maximum aperture, but this is a lens which is much less useful for zoom range, but much more useful for packing and travel. So I would like to see less ambitious lenses that are actually portable and practical.
But I don't see Sigma, Tamron would make these sort of lenses. Most likely, the Canon, Sony make this as a kit lens, for their system.
I think Sigma sells by weight. So those Sigma f1.4R lenses, I think they put them on the scales. Think 1 kilogram, not enough glass in there. Bump it up a bit. 1.5 kilos, that's us. That's us. So yeah, I think at the moment, Sigma certainly isn't that bothered about compact lenses.
Yeah.
The contemporary lenses are quite smallish, but I'd like to see more lenses like those little f2 Fujins or Fujitrons, whatever you want to call them.
People know that I like small lenses because I travel and I walk in the street a lot. I mean, I the last thing I want is a big chunky lens on the camera, you know, and I just like it small, like it discreet, like it light, so I can walk further and do more and shoot more with because of that. But yeah, I mean, I like Sigma doing a lot. They do have a big catalog of small prime lenses, and which I quite like.
They're small. They're smallish. Those contemporary full frame lenses, they're very, very nicely made, but they're not light. They're basically full of glass and metal, and you feel it whenever you use them, which is nice. But they're not really lightweight lenses.
No, but there's always the compromise when you have a metal body, metal body and glass.
Of course, yeah. I wouldn't deny it. Sony makes some quite small primes, but they're quite expensive too.
Yeah, I think the smallest primes and a nice quality metal lightweight prime is the new Open System 1.8 lenses. You know, the 17-25. They're brilliant. They're small. They're light. They're metal. They weather seal. You know, you can't get
aperture
smaller
rings.
Than that.
No aperture rings. Just saying. Sorry.
Only if.
I do like the Sony ones, but they're too expensive. And there's a Sony 24 f2.8, which is nowhere near as good as it should be at that price. No. So even Sony lenses can be patchy. But I've no idea. I'd like to see some less ambitious, smaller lenses, but I don't think that's going to happen.
So when it comes to prediction, we already said about autofocus from China, but I think that I would like, I mean, this is personal, and I don't necessarily, it's a trend, but I would like to see some nice manual lenses back. At the moment, I mean, like from China, especially that they now focus on AF, that means they're not going to focus on manual focus development now. They're just going to let whatever stock they have now dries up, and and that's it really. So that's a bit unfortunate because you know, the likes of Voigtlander we just talked about and Zeiss, you know, they still make manual lenses which I adore. I just don't want to see them disappear. That's what I want to say.
I think maybe Nikon and Voigtlander should team up.
Yeah.
And do some kind of Nikon badged Voigtlanders to go with the ZF.
Ooh.
Or perhaps even a ZFC. Because that would solve all the problems. You've got an aperture ring. Trouble is getting the aperture ring on the lens to talk to cameras that don't talk to manual aperture rings anymore. So I think the Nikon mount electrical connectors would not have the capacity to interpret manual aperture settings. I might be wrong. Maybe it's quite easy. But if it was easy, that would be a nice pairing.
Yeah. So I just got one new comment here before we start to wrap up. Adjusting a lens that not having an aperture ring is very subjective.
It is subjective, It's a preference,
Yeah, I mean, given a choice, yes, I would have an aperture ring, but I don't mind without one.
If I can't have one, I'll do without.
Yeah.
I do without on their own system. It's not a problem, but I'd just rather have one. It is a preference. It's not. I'm not insisting.
And having the aperture ring does make it look a little bit sexier. that's my opinion.
With Micro Four Thirds, I've used both the chipped Laowa lenses and Laowa lenses with aperture rings. I think it's 50-50. I like having a chip lens because there's more communication between the lens and the camera, but you don't have the aperture ring. But I still would rather have the aperture ring.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. But that's how we see things are shaping up at the moment. Obviously, we can talk about this all day long, and there's so many things that we could potentially dive into and expand, and maybe we will expand some of these topics in due course. And let us know in the comment section below if there's anything specific that you may want to hear, maybe expand a little bit and talk a little bit about that, because obviously we would like to talk about gear and photography and things like that, so that will be completely leading by you guys. But just before we wrap up, and just finally talk a little bit about point and shoot cameras. I want to see this back. Come on, OM System, get me a cool looking point and shoot camera back, and that would be cool with a 1-inch sensor. That would be my dream. I will pay anything for it. If I can spend 700 quid on the X half, I would pay something like this for a point and shoot from you.
Just weld the lens onto the EP7 and call it the trip, and you job done.
The trip will be nice.
And then put it in that
XA,
case.
Or the XA. Give me the XA. I'll be really, really happy with the XA. That'll be amazing. You got this clamshell design with covering the lens, and it doesn't need to be really fancy. People don't like fancy things anyway these days. So when it comes to point and shoot, just something basic, like just with a design. I think that will be selling quite well, and that's my opinion. And one last thing. I suddenly found this in a box the other day, and I have no idea where it came from. Apparently, it's a Laowa lens. It may be actually a prototype. I have no idea. It's a cine lens. It's a full frame cine lens. It's a 33mm T1. So I really have no idea where it came from. It's just in the box, and I might actually supposed to be reviewing them, but that probably in the box for about 3 years now. So it just left.
That's an expensive lens. That's an expensive lens you've got.
So yeah,
there.
I got one right here. No box.
Yeah.
It's without box. That means it most likely to be a prototype. So
okay.
There you go. I got some thing lying around for sure, and a lot of hidden things. I'm not telling my wife about it. So we time will tell. But okay, so,
we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. So thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully it's a fun discussion. But if you do have anything to contribute and talk a little bit about what you think about the market in general today, what you think would be a good thing to have in the future, or how you predict that the camera industry is heading towards in the next couple of years, whether you think the retro thing that we are now seeing would continue into the future, or not, because I only say that because OM System / Olympus has always been in designing the camera that way, a bit of like an old school retro looking, same as Fujifilm. So would that means that if the trend does stop at some point, would that mean that Fujifilm and OM is going to struggle again because things are gone? People are looking more futuristic stuff again. Would they adapt and change the camera design to suit that kind of look and trend? Time will tell. But that will be interesting to hear from you, whether you think that retro is going to continue. But in the meantime, that's for sure. In the immediate future, at least for the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to stay. Because people still can't get hold of the X106. maybe they have to wait until the X107, and then they will be able to get hold of one.
And suddenly the 6 will become available. They'll be all you can get. I've seen a couple of places selling the 6 now, but I think it's been so long.
Yeah, and at the moment we still don't know what the effect is like with the US tariff things going, because I know that it's causing quite a bit of a chaos at the moment, and not only about price, but also like some people may even delay the US launch because of that reasons. Like DJI, the Osmo 360 is not even available in the US, and because of that, at the moment
DJI status in the US.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people aren't buying because they think the tariffs might go.
Yeah,
and they'll regret buying now.
Yeah, so
we'll see. It's an impossible situation.
It is. Anyway, we don't want to go into political stuff, so let's call it a day. No. So, cool. So thank you very much for watching, and remember to leave some comments down below, and we're going to be back in 2 weeks' time. I'm not going to be around next week because I'm away. I'm going very close to Rod, and in the southwest of England, and so we're going to be having a family holiday for a week. So we're going to be hiking around, taking some pictures. I will be testing some new stuff. Hopefully, when I come back, if the embargo is lifted, I will be able to show you the gear and also some pictures taken from it. And all I can say is that it's very, very, very interesting, especially, if I may say, for Michael Four Third users. That's all I can say now. I'm not going to say any more now.
I think you said enough.
It's a teaser. I'm not saying anything. Okay, right. This is the perks for joining us live here. You know, like, if you miss anything, remember to join us.
You remember you didn't hear first because Jimmy wouldn't tell us.
No, exactly. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
No, I've forgotten already.
Shh. All right then. Okay. All right, guys. I'll see you all very soon, and have a great day. And see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.